Well, it is finally here. The football season, the Cleveland Browns football season 2024 campaign, and we are so excited here at the Big Play Sports Network. Hello, everybody. My name is Chico Borman, and this show is indeed Chico's Countdown to Kickoff. I told you I've been working on something feverishly for this season. This is it, and we're going to be doing this for you each and every week during the NFL season, during the Browns season, beginning obviously right now with week 1 against the Dallas Cowboys. We're going to feature so many different aspects. We're going to have you all set and ready. By the time the game kicks off at 4:25 on Sunday against the Cowboys, you're going to be all set. We're going to hear from, in our Behind Enemy Line segment, we're going to hear from 𝗖𝗛𝗜𝗖𝗢𝗏 from The Athletic, our good buddy Dan Labbe, who we talked to a lot last year, covering the Browns for Cleveland.com. We will also hear from him, but some interesting other nuggets as well. Matchups to watch, predictions we'll have in there. We'll go around the AFC North. It's going to be a lot of fun, and certainly looking for some good interaction with you people as well. All right, before I go any further, I want to introduce my highly esteemed producer.
Thank you.
I'll even go so far as to say producer extraordinaire,
Wow.
Pat McGuire. Pat, it is so great to have you here with the Big Play family. It's so great to have you in studio for Chico's Countdown to Kickoff all season long.
Thank you, sir. Of course. Yeah, and it's great to hear those kind words. I'm sure the check will clear soon, so don't worry about that part. Yeah,
well, I don't know if that check will
weekly
clear.
Venmo, however you want to do that, we can take care of it. But excited for the Browns season. I can't believe that it's here. Feels like it's been a million years since the Super Bowl. That's the last time we got football. College football is here. Bobby Carpenter shows going daily now on the Big Play Sports Network, but it's nothing like Browns football in this town.
Good promo.
Nothing like it.
See that? He's a veteran. He's a smooth vet. He knew how to promo that. Yeah, I'll tell you what. I think we're all excited. How could you not be excited? The Browns are all in. They've been all in, and since the acquisition of Deshaun Watson. But since that acquisition, we as Browns fans have been waiting. Okay, is this finally gonna pan out? Is this really going to be the guy? And we come into this year asking the same questions we have the last couple of years. A big injury last year to Deshaun Watson. By the way, an injury unprecedented. I mean, that's hard to do in the NFL with quarterbacks. I mean, so many different injuries, yes, but a lot of them, you can find somebody. Nobody had what Deshaun had last year, and he's trying to recover from it. You haven't seen him in the preseason. On top of that, you've had an offensive line that is extremely banged up. Guys like Jack Conklin, speaking of major injuries, major knee injury. If he gets back, this will be the first time since, week 1. And, oh, by the way, that's Micah Parsons and company going to be over there on Sunday at Huntington Bank Field. So a lot of unknowns. We'll talk about the good. We'll talk about the possibly a few concerns. But we are ready to go. We are fired up. And, again, we will have predictions. All I'm going to say with the predictions is this. Look, I am very objective. I'm not a fanboy. Now, do I love my Browns? Absolutely. Sorry, Hanford. Absolutely love the Browns. But if I feel a win is not in the offing for the Browns any week, this week, I'm going to say it. That'll be part of the prediction. But we will break. I'll give you reasons. And hopefully I'll be wrong. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to get started. And as I said, Behind Enemy Line segment, each and every week, we're going to go a deep dive. I can tell you about the Dallas Cowboys, but we want boots on the ground. And 𝗖𝗛𝗜𝗖𝗢𝗏 from The Athletic has been covering not only the Cowboys, but the entire Dallas scene for years now. He's got the Cowboys. We're going to talk about this matchup. We're going to get this whole thing started before the Browns and Cowboys get things started at 4:25 Eastern Standard Time at Huntington Bank Stadium. Just a rock throw away from here at Burke Lakefront Airport. We'll do that when we come back. It's Chico's Countdown to Kickoff, and it rolls along right here on the Big Play Sports Network. Alrighty, welcome back to Chico's Countdown to Kickoff as we get closer and closer to week 1 of the NFL season. Your Cleveland Browns playing host to the star, the Dallas Cowboys, taking on the Cleveland Browns over at Huntington Bank Stadium, newly minted Huntington Bank Stadium, no longer First Energy. That's a 4:25 start, and for good measure, Tom Brady is going to be making his broadcasting debut in the booth. So a lot going on coming up Sunday afternoon at Huntington Bank Stadium. We are very pleased on our first Behind Enemy Lines segment to welcome in Saad Yousuf. He covers the Dallas Cowboys for The Athletic, and he joins us right now on Chico's Countdown to Kickoff. Saad, great to have you. How are you, bud?
I'm doing great. Football's in the air. What can't you be smiling about right now?
Everybody's in a better mood this week, right? Food tastes
Absolutely.
better, the air feels better, everything. Well, it's interesting we say that because let's talk about the Dallas Cowboys, obviously the team you cover, and from what I understand, the team you grew up with. So you've got plenty of experience there in the Dallas area. This is a team last 3 years, 12-5. And one of the themes in the offseason, and it was interesting because when I think of Jerry Jones, I think when we all think of Jerry Jones from the outside looking in, it's, oh man, this guy, he's going to do whatever it absolutely takes to get that championship. And for some reason, there was like these, I don't know, whispers, if you want to call it. Maybe they weren't whispers in Dallas that Jerry really doesn't care that much, and he's not hell-bent on getting a championship. Though I say that, and they just signed CeeDee Lamb to that monster contract. So is that a real kind of thing in Dallas, or is that just something we were kind of hearing nationally?
No, it's a real thing, and you know the oldest sports talk radio topic in Dallas is Jerry the owner should fire Jerry the GM. That's what you'll hear it 10 times a year, and it'll be a big discussion. And the reason why I bring that up though is because I think Jerry the GM really does want to win. I believe that. I believe he wants to win a Super Bowl and everything. Now he wants to do it on his terms. He wants to do it with his coach that he picked. He wants the credit. But the thing is that when you talk about the overall priority for the franchise, Jerry the owner supersedes Jerry the GM. The Cowboys are the highest valued franchise in the NFL, the highest valued sports franchise in the world at over $10 billion. Jerry the owner is winning big on that front. Everybody know everywhere the Cowboys go, there's Cowboys fans, all that stuff. And so I think there's just this internal conflict that's always going on between the owner and the GM. And for most franchises, for most sports franchises, that actually is a battle between two people. But this is a battle between one person holds the same title for both. And so it creates just a mess because the owner wants the team to have a lot of money. He wants to be making money and marketing himself right. And the GM needs to be focused just on winning. But sometimes those two things don't always align.
Is the owner in this case, and that's very well said, in this case, is the owner and GM not on the same page as far as Dak Prescott and his future is concerned?
I think with Dak, it's interesting. I think with Dak, there's a little more nuance than most people would like to think there is, because the CeeDee Lamb contract is a great example where there really wasn't much nuance. You needed to get that done. Jefferson signed his deal in June. You knew what the parameters were. It was going to come in right around that. What they ended up signing is exactly what everyone expected it to be. So I think with Dak, though, there is more nuance because there's this thing that this is 9 years in. He hasn't had playoff success, and he's going to be looking for a contract that's going to go above $55 million, which is what Burrow, Trevor Lawrence, Jordan Love and are making at the top of the market. So I think the way Jerry sees it is I can give him 57, 58, 60 million right now, or I can let him show me if he can do it in January. And then I probably still need to give him 60 million, but at least I know he can do it in January.
Do you think if Jerry had it to do over again, because a lot of what we hear is, man, Jerry really mishandled this as far as, getting in front of it. And do you think if he had it to do over again, he would have signed him? Because now it sounds like, and you correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like Dak is asking for more years, whereas I think the last go around, it was he wanted less years. So do you think Jerry would have handled this differently in hindsight?
I think Jerry would have handled it differently before that playoff loss to the Packers. I think after that, I don't think this offseason. I think if the Cowboys go to the NFC Championship game last season, I think Dak is already under contract for a long time. I don't think there's any question about it. I think it's the fact that the season ended the way it did, and Dak wasn't a passenger to that disaster. He was in the driver's seat of it. He threw that interception early in the game that got the Packers going. He threw the pick six that all but sealed the game. And it wasn't the first time that he's come up short in the playoffs. So I think if Jerry had to do it over again, and if he was looking to sign Dak before that game last season, maybe last offseason, perhaps he does do some things differently. But after that Packers loss, I don't think anything has caught Jerry or the Cowboys off by surprise. Anything that's happened this offseason. I think this has kind of been everything they expected. They kind of expected to go into this long standoff.
Saad Yousuf joining us. He covers the Cowboys for The Athletic. Browns-Cowboys coming up Sunday at 4:25 at Huntington Bank Stadium. One last thing on Dak before we move on and talk about some of the other ins and outs of this game. Is he – I mean, I hear him with the media, and I think there's – I think one of the words I was listening to one of your podcasts, the One Star podcast, I believe it is, and that doesn't mean it's rated 1 star. It's 5 stars, but that's the name of it. And I think somebody used the term spicier, which I thought was interesting. That Dak now with the media is a bit spicier. Does he kind of sound a little defensive when, like you said, the playoff game? Yes, he was front and center of that, but. Hey, do you think there's a part of Dak that wants to say, guys, it wasn't all me? I mean, you saw the defense. How much of that do you think comes out with Dak these days?
Yeah, I mean, I think spicier is a good word. I think looser is a different word that you could use in that realm as well. And I think it goes back to really our first press conference with him in Oxnard for Cowboys training camp. And there was a question he was answering, and he paused in the middle of his answer. He looked over to the PR person on the stage that was with him, and he just said, you know what, I'm just going to say it. And he went on to talk about how all the great quarterbacks that he grew up watching, they played for multiple teams. That's not something that 2019 Dak would have said. And then last week, of course, him going on about, like, you know, if it doesn't get done before Sunday, it'll show what people feel or how people feel. And again, I think the question that was posed to him on that was, would you like for the contract to be done? And he said, if it's not done, it shows how people feel. Well, 2019 Dak just says, sure, of course I would like it to get done, and then you move on. But yeah, Dak has a little bit more of an edge to him. I think there's part of it, a big part of it is exactly what you said. I think he understands, and everybody else understands, that it's not just him. That defense collapsed big time against the Packers. So it's not just him. But I think the other thing is that Dak, there are a few players that I can remember in my time watching the NFL that have had as much leverage as Dak has. I mean, you talk about having a no franchise tag clause, a no trade clause, a terrible quarterback free agency market, a pretty bad quarterback draft next year. I mean, it's going to be Dak against the field next year. So Dak is going to get, I would say there will be 2 teams next year that would be willing to just give him a blank check. And he could just fill in the years, fill in the money you want, and let's go. So I think Dak understands how much leverage he has, and I think that's what it's resulted in him being a lot spicier, a lot looser.
Well, you definitely nailed it. I mean, the leverage that he holds right now, and you mentioned the no tag clause, the no trade clause. I mean, he might just be saying to himself already, like, hey, I'm just going to go out. I think I saw somebody print, I'm just going to go out and have that screw you type season. And by the way, last year he was pretty good. 36 TDs, 9 picks. I mean, he threw for, over 4,500 yards. Could you see a scenario where he maybe duplicates that, maybe goes beyond that and still says adios and I'm done with Jerry and I'm done with the Dallas Cowboys?
Well, so 2 things on that. Number one, I can see him duplicating it because the Cowboys don't have a very good run game. They don't have any running back that's really, that you feel really confident about. And so I think they're going to be relying on Dak's arm even more than they did last year when they had Tony Pollard in the backfield. And on top of that, last year, Dak and the Cowboys were breaking in a brand new offense as they went away from Kellen Moore into the Mike McCarthy system. And there was a lot of verbiage. There was a lot of change in concepts and things like that. Mike McCarthy brings a little bit more of a West Coast flavor, and they were doing a lot of that. Now Dak is in his second year in this offense. CD's back in the fold. Jake Ferguson broke out last year. Brandon Cook's second year going around. Jalen Tolbert looks good. I think as long as Dak stays healthy, there's no reason why he doesn't have a bigger year. Now, if he has a big year and the Cowboys don't get past the divisional round of the playoffs, there could be there's a world where the Cowboys don't even extend him the offer that he's looking for, and then he leaves. Now, I think if he got the deal that he wants, if he gets the money in the years that he wants, all sour feelings aside, everything aside, I think he would sign it. At his core, he wants to be the Dallas Cowboys franchise quarterback. Just an hour ago, I was at the facility. We talked to him today on Thursday, and he mentioned that he acknowledges how different it would be to win a championship in Dallas. He said that feeling can't be replicated winning anywhere else. To be the quarterback that ends the 30-year drought for the Dallas Cowboys to win a Super Bowl. I mean, you can go win in Jacksonville. You can go resurrect New England. You can go win in Las Vegas. It's not the same as ending that 30-year drought in Dallas and being the quarterback that did that.
Maybe the only thing close is winning in Cleveland, right? I mean, it might be that close. All right, Saad, let's flip this and go over to the defense really quick because, there's been a lot of change there. Obviously, Dan Quinn is out. Mike Zimmer is in. Let's start there. What is something you notice right away, whether it be subtle or, it really stands out, the difference between Dan Quinn's defense and Mike Zimmer's defense?
Well, the number one thing is so easy. I mean, Micah Parsons is just all over the field. I mean, he was an edge rusher in Dan Quinn's system primarily, but watching him in training camp, it's just impossible to miss. He's a Mike linebacker. He's a Will linebacker. He's an edge rusher. He's everywhere. It wouldn't surprise me if we saw him at safety at some point this season as well. Just not actually playing safety, but like in that position. Just he has been all over the field. Mike Zimmer has been using him in so many places. He's rushed the passer right over the center. He's rushed from outside. He's dropped back in pass coverage into the flats. So that's the number one thing. The number two thing, and this isn't so much a fault of Dan Quinn and it's not a credit to Mike Zimmer as much. It's more of a change in the personnel department for the Cowboys in the front office. But the linebackers actually play linebacker this year. Last year, they had safeties being converted to play linebacker. I'm talking about Marquise Bell primarily.
Yep.
And they didn't have healthy linebackers last year. And this year, their linebacking core is actually, I would argue, maybe the deepest position on their team, with Eric Kendricks, Mike Zimmer's guy from Minnesota, coming in and being the top dog. And then you get DeMarvion Overshown back from injury. Maris Leofau, their draft pick this year, has been really impressive. And Damone Clark is a returner from last year. So I think the linebacking core is really impressive. And Micah is actually part of that linebacking core now with how much he's moving around. And I'm curious to see what kind of impact that has on the entire defense, and especially the run defense, which was statistically middle of the pack last year. The Cowboys were 16th in the NFL. But when the games mattered, and I'm talking about at Buffalo in December and against the Green Bay Packers in the playoffs, they couldn't stop a nosebleed. So I'm curious to see how the run defense changes with the linebacker makeover and Mike Zimmer's change in emphasis.
Feels like a lot of, from everything I can see and hear, is that a lot of folks are really excited about Overshown that you mentioned. Yes,
absolutely. I mean, all offseason when we talked to the Cowboys, they kept saying that they kind of view him as the like an upgrade, as a free agency signing, because remember, he didn't play at all last year. After he got drafted, he tore his ACL in the preseason. So there's a lot of buzz, a lot of excitement, and it's hard to judge linebackers just in practices and even a preseason game, which he only played like one series anyways. But he looks like the real deal. He's flying around. He's athletic, and he's a very smart football player too. So I'm buying into the Overshown hype, and I'm curious to see how it manifests.
As we look at this game, I can tell you from a Browns standpoint that, okay, yes, you have Jack Conklin back healthy or healthy enough to play in this game. They have been really, really decimated by injury, both last year and even here in camp. But Conklin then goes from the right side to the left side, and there's a lot of shuffling right now, and there's, quite frankly, a lot of unknown. There's always unknown going into a season opener. There's a ton for the Browns on the O-line. I can only imagine that Mike Zimmer and that defense, and you talked about moving Micah Parsons all around, that they are looking to create all kinds of hell and make it 3 hours of hell for Deshaun Watson and company back there.
Yeah, and honestly, they need to, because they need to first of all capitalize on the fact that Nick Chubb isn't playing, because that's a huge dimension for the Browns, that the Cowboys, with their struggles in run defense and how talented Chubb is, that's a huge break for the Cowboys. And then if they're going to throw the ball more, and they got Jerry Jeudy now, but the guy that I look at is the guy that was in Dallas, and Amari Cooper. And I would think the Browns would try to look at Kalen Carson, the rookie 5th-round pick, because the Cowboys are without Deron Bland for at least 4 weeks. Their top cornerback, who led the league in interceptions last year. If you can get Amari Cooper, one of the best route runners in the league, against a 5th-round rookie, you want that matchup every single time. And the best way the Cowboys can match up that way, sure, they can try to travel Trayvon Diggs and stick him on Cooper. But the best way to protect your secondary is to not give Watson time to throw. And I think that is the thing that Mike Zimmer and that defense is really going to emphasize, is that, hey, we don't have to be, you need to be good in run defense, but you're not facing their top threat. And then when it comes to the pass, forget, the pass defense in the back. We need to get after the quarterback so Amari Cooper doesn't even have time to carve up anybody that he will, because I've seen it in Dallas for years. He's just a scientist when he's on the field with those route running. But that doesn't matter if the quarterback doesn't have time to get through his progressions and for him to actually get the ball to Amari Cooper.
Flipping it to the Cowboys on offense, Browns on defense, you could pretty much say a lot of the same things. Obviously we know about Myles Garrett. Micah Parsons, TJ Watt, always in the mix for Defensive Player of the Year. What do you think the game plan is? What do you think the Cowboys are looking to do against a very aggressive and obviously a very destructive Jim Schwartz defense?
Yeah, the Cowboys are going to have to, at some points, maybe not the entire game, but a percentage of the game, they're going to have to play a 10-man offense, because leaving Myles Garrett isolated on a rookie and Tyler Guyton is just a bad idea. Whether you need a chip, get a tight end to chip him, whether you need to keep a back in to protect, and they have a guy in Zeke who is a veteran who understands how to do that stuff, but they're going to have to help out whoever is going against Myles Garrett. Now, if Garrett is, rushing against your guards, you feel okay about that because you have 2 All-Pros in Tyler Smith and Zach Martin. But if he's going against Tyler Guyton on the left side, which I assume Cleveland is going to try to get to that matchup, you're going to need – the Cowboys have 4 tight ends on the roster. One of their tight ends hasn't been practicing this week, but he's more of a pass catcher anyways. I would think that they're going to make sure that if Jake Ferguson, they want to go run pass patterns, I would think Brevin Spanford or Luke Schoonmaker, their other tight ends, are going to be chipping and helping out Myles Garrett. And then you kind of let Dak do his thing, because, yes, it's a talented defense through and through at every level. The Cleveland Browns, if I'm not mistaken, were the top defense in the league last year. So they're not one-dimensional. But if you can give Dak time and give CD time to work, and Jake Ferguson and Brandon Cooks, I feel like they can do damage, but it all starts up front for them.
All right, you can decline here, but can we get a prediction from you before we get out of here?
Yeah, I did it on my podcast. I did it in a piece that's going to come out in the Athletic as well. I'm going Cowboys 21-17. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. Yeah. At the end of the day, I think I'm just not bought in on Deshaun Watson right now, to be quite honest with you, and that's kind of where I fall when I think it's a very evenly matched game. But when they are evenly matched, I usually look at the quarterback and see who I'm going to give the edge to. And right now, I just trust Dak more than I trust Deshaun Watson.
Follow him on Twitter at 𝗖𝗛𝗓126. That's 𝗖𝗛𝗓126. Does a great job covering the Cowboys for The Athletic. And, Saad, we appreciate you taking time. Certainly enjoy your time here in Cleveland covering the game. We cannot wait for 425 to kick things off. Thanks so much, buddy.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Man, really good stuff there from 𝗖𝗛𝗓. We're going to put it to good use with our next segment coming up. Matchups to watch. There's plenty. He mentioned Deshaun Watson. how much do you trust Deshaun Watson? We're going to get into that as well. It's all coming up next on Chico's Countdown to Kickoff as we count down to the Browns Cowboys Sunday afternoon, 4:25 kickoff. You're listening to it. You're watching it all right here on the Big Play Sports Network. Alrighty, welcome back to Chico's Countdown to Kickoff, getting oh so close to the Browns and the Cowboys. Week 1 from Huntington Bank Stadium. Browns a 2.5-point favorite at home against the boys. And I tell you, really good stuff there from Saad Yousuf of the Athletic talking about the Cowboys. I feel like these two defenses, when we look at matchups to watch, and we kind of expand on this a little bit, you're talking about two of the best pass rushes and pass rushers. Micah Parsons for the Dallas Cowboys, Myles Garrett for the Cleveland Browns. And I think essentially this is where I say I think this is going to be a low-scoring game. You got offenses. There's always that unknown going in, more so for the offense, but more importantly for this offense as far as the Browns is concerned, because Deshaun Watson hasn't played in the preseason. The offensive line has been, they've been shuffling the deck, and went to like some sort of emergency roster type thing just so they could get through training camp. And now you're talking about, yes, it's great to have Jack Conklin back. Is he going to be anywhere near 100%? And, oh, by the way, he's got to go back to learning left tackle again, which he last played at Michigan State in college. So, Pat, I'm going to bring you in here. I feel like both sides both offenses are kind of staring down the same issue, and that is, okay, look, these guys are coming. They're fierce. You're talking about a Dallas team, I think last year, that led the league in pass rush win rate. And you would think they're only going to be better. Micah Parsons, another year under his belt. So it is going to be absolutely imperative for the Browns to give Deshaun Watson enough time to throw. And I'm not even talking like you heard, we've heard a lot about quick passes. That's what Ken Dorsey's offense is going to be. And look, in the early going, it might have to be, because you don't want to see this guy taking 5, 7, God forbid, 9-step drops.
Yeah,
and
the Bernie Kosar days. Yeah, we're not looking for that.
The long gone. And you're trying to keep him healthy as well. But I also think, there are what is this Ken Dorsey offense going to look like? Short passing game to the sidelines. But it's just going to be so important for them up front, and not an easy task with this Dallas Cowboys. It's going to be difficult, but no questions asked. They have to be able to keep those guys at bay.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, that's going to be the key. This one's going to be a trenches game all game long. Both sides of the ball. If the Browns can get a little bit of a push with Jerome Ford with that offensive line too, I think that's kind of going to take some of the pressure off of Deshaun Watson. Nick Chubb not healthy yet. Can't really expect anything for a couple weeks now. He's on the PUP list, I think it is. So it's going to be a tough one. But those quick passing game, I don't think Watson has the shoulder health right now to throw those deep balls as it is. So I'm expecting shorter to...
No, that's a whole nother issue.
It's a whole other issue. But I'm expecting the shorter to intermediate routes to really be important today. Amari Cooper, Jerry Jeudy, they're not really deep threats, in my opinion, anyway. So that sort of lines up for the Browns.
You know what makes me nervous is, like we say, you look at deep throws, and we know what a deep throw looks like. You're going vertical, you're going up top. But like a long throw that is a short throw are those sideline throws, right? And, this is a team, Dallas is going to be without Deron Bland. And that's a good thing for the Browns, because this guy led the league in interceptions. Now, the guy who will be playing, who led the league in interceptions the year before, is Trayvon Diggs. It was last year.
Yeah,
he had the injury coming before that. So, you've got a guy still in Trayvon Diggs, And sometimes, man, you telegraph that long throw to the sideline. You've got a good corner, and we have good corners here for the Browns. Your job, you're going to sit on that.
Yeah.
You're going
to
gamble
bait
too. Yeah, you're almost going to bait that quarterback, and all of a sudden, make that quick push up and try to get the pick. So it almost feels like a safe game plan, which I'm not against. But I'd love to see them be able to run between the tackles, because Dallas was not good against the run last year. Now, their linebackers, as we heard from 𝗖𝗛𝗓𝗖𝗢𝗪, this is like a whole new linebacking core, whole new defensive scheme to a degree. Mike Zimmer is in, and Dan Quinn is out, but they're still going to be aggressive. I still think there's an opportunity for the Browns to run the football. And you say that every week, but they absolutely, I think, are going to have to be able to do that to take some of the pressure off of Deshaun Watson and, by proxy, that offensive line.
Oh, certainly. And I think it's funny you mentioned Dan Quinn, too, because I just think of Greg Williams here on the Big Play Sports Network, right? He's a very aggressive defensive coordinator. Dan Quinn was like that as well, sending a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
But when you've got pick six merchants back there, Deron Bland, and in the secondary, you can kind of do that, and they'll save your bacon a little bit for Dan Quinn. But all you got to do is Amari Cooper on a little double route, and that's 6. It could be interesting when you go short routes all game long. Then that opens up the deep route, the double move, that type of thing. So it could be interesting later on in the game if the Cowboys continue to get aggressive all game long. Then we'll see the Browns try to go deep.
Now, we flip it on the other side, and, hey, the Browns are also, a guy like Myles Garrett he's licking his chops every week, But we're talking about a left tackle, a rookie in Tyler Guyton. So welcome to the NFL, Tyler Guyton. A good pick, and they really like him a lot in Dallas, but he is a rookie, and it is Myles Garrett. Now, they're going to, much like Micah is going to be moved around formations, and Myles Garrett, the same thing. Zadarius Smith, let's not forget about him. That was a really big key guy to bring back. This Dallas offensive line, they got another rookie at center in Cooper Beebe. So you got 2 rookies on that line. Make no mistake, Jim Schwartz and those guys up front are well aware of that. And not much of a ground game, I don't think anyway, to speak of in Dallas. Zeke's back. Rico Dowdell, you're hearing a little bit. But this is going to be the Dak show. How much of a Dak show as far as CeeDee Lamb remains to be seen. Is he ready to go right out of the chute? I mean, he's still one of the most dangerous, if not the most dangerous receiver in the game. And that's where, when you talk about how the Browns are going to defend CeeDee Lamb, it's easy to say, well, okay, that's Denzel Ward. You're going to line up Denzel, but you're going to see, as we see all across the NFL now, guys, so many different formations. You're going to see CeeDee Lamb out wide. You're going to see him in tight in the slot. So he's going to see probably mostly Denzel Ward. But he's also going to see Martin Emerson Jr., and he's probably going to see some of Greg Newsome in the slot. So I just think that, you look at those 2 matchups and you really focus on the pass rush and how each offensive line is really going to try to, keep his quarterback upright, their quarterback upright in order to make some of those plays down the field. But, with that comes a possible sack or 2 of Deshaun Watson, and I'm going to get into this more later in my prediction. I have a lot.
It's a dicey one.
I'm a little nervous.
It's a dicey one.
Well, I'll just say that.
I don't know if the Browns are wearing those home white jerseys or not, but if Deshaun Watson doesn't have a lot of grass stains, I think it'll be a good sign.
That would be a great
sign for the Browns.
Yeah, that would be a great sign. No question about it. All right, so there's your matchups to watch. When we come back on Chico's Countdown to Kickoff, getting you ready for the Browns and the Cowboys Sunday at 4:25, we're going to go around the AFC North. What a wild affair it was at Arrowhead Stadium Thursday night. First of all, great matchup, possibly AFC Championship preview. But, man, those 2 teams delivered. We'll talk about that. Also go around the North Division talking about the Bengals and Steelers as well. That's all ahead right here on the Big Play Sports Network. All righty, welcome back into Chico's Countdown to Kickoff as we get set for the 2024 campaign. Can't believe it's finally here, but it is. The Browns opening things up against Big D, the Dallas Cowboys, at home. And it's now Huntington Bank Stadium, which we're all getting used to. But the Browns and the Cowboys 4:25 kickoff coming up on Sunday afternoon. What to expect? Well, I'll tell you, Week 1, before we bring in 𝗖𝗛𝗏𝗧𝗏, Week 1 is always, there's a lot of unknown. I don't care who your team is and the team you cover or the team you root for. There's always unknown because, well, it's Week 1. But especially, at least it seems like it to me, that there's a lot of unknown, particularly on the offensive side of the ball for the Browns. And more on that. We head out to Berea, our good buddy from last year, who he was so good. The demand was so much, so great that we decided to bring him back, and we appreciate it. He's 𝗖𝗛𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏 of Cleveland.com, joining us here on the Countdown to Kickoff show. Hello there, Mr. Lobby.
Hey, Chico, it's good to be back for another year. Excited to do it.
What we had, I'll tell you what, that was a wild ride last year. 11-6, 5 different quarterbacks. You go back to the beginning of the year, and Week 1, Conklin goes down. Week 2, it's Chubb, and you're thinking, and then of course Deshaun Watson. Week 10, you're thinking, well, there's no hope. And then we had the miracle with Joe Flacco. Didn't end so well in that wild card round, but man, it was such an exciting season. So as we turn the page and get ready for this upcoming season, I feel like the same question we had last year and probably the year before, and really the year before that, is, okay, what exactly does this offense look like? But specifically, let's just start at the beginning. Is Deshaun Watson healthy from what you've been able to glean being at practice out in Berea?
Yeah, I mean, that's the question on everyone's mind, is the health of that throwing shoulder. And I think there were some inconsistencies when he was out here. I think we saw him. He was really accurate in the short game, the intermediate game. The deep ball was a little hit and miss at times during camp. But it did feel to me as we got closer and closer to the start of the season that shoulder looked better, that the ball was coming out with some zip. There's that word everybody loves with Deshaun Watson and Browns quarterbacks, is zip. So it felt like there was some zip on that football. And you have to remember in these practices, sometimes they're working on things. Sometimes, he's throwing a pass that he might not even throw in a game. He might throw it away instead. But I think he progressed throughout camp. Now, I don't know exactly where that's going to leave us once the Browns take the field at 4:25 on Sunday. But I think I feel better today than maybe I did going all the way back to the Greenbrier.
Okay, so now we enter Ken Dorsey into the equation. And because Deshaun didn't get a chance to practice all that much, because the offensive line has been banged up, we'll get to that in a moment, and because the receiver, you just really didn't have a lot of first-team reps. And now you're talking about an offense that is new under Ken Dorsey. So I'm going to close my eyes here, and you kind of describe to me what you think we'll be looking at more often than not at Huntington Bank Stadium with the Browns on offense. What's it going to look like, Dan?
If I had to guess, I think it's going to look, I think you're going to see them utilize the short passing game a lot. I think you're going to see them utilize the middle of the field a good amount. Again, I think Deshaun Watson, for whatever you want to say about anything else, I don't think his accuracy has left him. He was really accurate all throughout camp, I thought. So I think they're going to utilize that, and they might even replace some of the run game a little bit with the quick passing game. Now, that doesn't mean they aren't going to look for explosive plays, because that's why you have Deshaun Watson, is he's aggressive. He wants to throw down the field. But I think we are going to see an emphasis on a guy like Jerry Jeudy. Can he get yards after the catch? Can Elijah Moore get yards after the catch? I think they're going to rely pretty heavily on that stuff, especially early in the year. And I think it's going to take time. The reality in the NFL is we love to sit here and talk about how every single game matters. And more than any other sport, that's true. But also you're building in the NFL, and you really want to be playing your best football in November, December, heading into a run in January. So this offense is not going to look in week 10 like it does in week one. It's still going to be very much a work in progress for a lot of the reasons that you mentioned, just the time on task and all of that. But I think one of the things we'll see is timing, quick passes, yards after the catch. Those are really some of the goals, I think, of this offense.
So, we talk about Dallas, and if you're going to throw the ball against the Cowboys, those guys, namely Micah Parsons, Lawrence, these guys get home, and other guys too, but mainly those guys, and especially Parsons, are nightmare mismatches. So if you're the Browns, obviously the first thing you say is, well, maybe if we can run the ball a little bit. Nick Chubb is out. You've got Jerome Ford there. And even with the revamping of the offensive line, you still have road graders. Love that term. Road graders like Joe Bitonio, Wyatt Teller. So I don't know. Do we think that the Browns might really try to establish Jerome Ford? Can he be a strong between the tackles type runner if need be?
Yeah, I've never viewed him quite as that type of back that you're going to turn and just hand the ball off to 20 times, 25 times. But I also don't know if that's what the Browns want to do anyway. But I think he can be effective in the run game. And I also think, Dante Foreman is a guy who's had some ups and downs in his career, but I think they really view him as someone who can be sort of that in that Kareem Hunt role a little bit, sort of that power back, get behind those road graders, like you like to call them, and kind of really pile up short yardage situations. And I think he can be an effective runner here. So I think they believe in their scheme. I think they do believe in the guys they have. And the reality is you don't have to necessarily just turn and hand the ball off 25, 30 times to have an effective run game. You just have to do enough to make sure that these Dallas Cowboys pass rushers can't just tee off on the quarterback all game, that they have to at least respect. And we've got a dog barking in the background because you have to at least respect what it is that this team can do on the ground in the run game.
It's funny. We saw that Thursday night with the Baltimore Ravens, of course, losing to Kansas City Chiefs. It got to a point, and hopefully this isn't going to happen for the Browns on Sunday, but it got to a point where, man, that offensive line, a lot of revamping there, and Ronnie Stanley having issues getting lined up. It really got to a point where you could just see that Todd Monken was not going to – he didn't want a deep drop. He didn't care about going downfield as much. He wanted to get that ball out quickly. So is that kind of the idea of the Browns going downfield, going vertical, which, of course, excites all the fans, but is that something that you think is going to be awfully difficult to do as far as that pass rush is concerned?
It could be, especially with the state of where this tackle situation is. We don't know exactly who's going to start on Sunday at left tackle, if it's going to be Jack Conklin or if it's going to be James Hudson, but we know they're going to have to help out whoever's over there. And part of that is going to be getting the ball out quickly. And part of that is going to be maybe not taking as many deep shots. I still think that's going to be a part of the game plan, but I do think that's something worth watching is, do they kind of try to utilize the quick passing game again to just make sure that if Micah Parsons doesn't have time to get back there, Micah Parsons can't disrupt the passing game. So I think that's definitely something to keep an eye on.
Deshaun Watson is a very mobile quarterback, very athletic quarterback. I'll go back to the Baltimore game on Thursday night. Now, nobody's Lamar Jackson, who just looked like a rocket back there on Thursday. But in terms of Deshaun Watson and being mobile and running the football, there's that balance, right? You want to be very, very cautious. We know about all of the injuries. He certainly knows about all of the injuries. But from what you've gathered in talking to Ken Dorsey and, how he wants to kind of utilize him, is running the football still on the table as far as Deshaun's concerned, just not in a reckless sort of way?
Yeah, I think it's always about picking your spots. And I think with Ken Dorsey in particular, you're talking about a guy who just coached Josh Allen, right? And Josh Allen is a guy who plays the position like a linebacker. And you can't take that out of a guy. You can't say to Josh Allen, you can't play this like a linebacker, because that's part of what makes him who he is. That's part of his DNA. And Deshaun Watson is built differently. He doesn't run like a Josh Allen. He doesn't run like a Cam Newton, who Ken Dorsey also coached. But part of his DNA is his ability to create in the run game and his ability to make plays down the field when he's moving, when he's escaping. And that ability to use his legs and gain yardage, gain first downs, get in the end zone like we saw a few times last year with his legs. So you can't completely take that away because that's who he is, and you need him to be who he is. But I think it's mostly pick your spots. We saw Lamar Jackson Thursday night. There was a play early in that game where he lowered his shoulder into a Chiefs defender. And it was kind of like, did you really need to do that? I think maybe you turned a 2nd and 8 into a 2nd and 7 by doing that.
Right.
I think it's little things like that, just picking your spots and understanding situations. But you can't take that away from him because that's part of what makes him Deshaun Watson.
He's Dan Labbe, Cleveland.com, covering the Cleveland Browns. You can follow him on Twitter at Dan_Labbe. That's Labbe. A few more minutes with Dan as we get ready for the Browns and Cowboys coming up Sunday at 4:25. Browns kicking off the season here. And let me flip this now over to the other side of the football. And obviously, Dan, this was a team under Jim Schwartz, year one. This defense really was the story for a while throughout the entire NFL, but certainly the story of the Cleveland Browns. Now, we know, save for the playoff game against Houston, they were great at home. A lot of the same characters are back. What do you expect? What does Jim Schwartz, more importantly, expect out of this unit in year two?
If you were to ask me what part of the team I feel most confident in, I think it's that defense, and I think it starts with that pass rush.
Yeah.
I just feel really confident about this group and that they can be. Are they going to be as dominant as they were last year when you were seeing numbers like they were the first team to do things since the Baltimore Ravens in 2000 or teams in the 70s were doing defensively? I don't know if they're going to match that sort of output or that sort of production, but I think this is still going to be a really dominant unit. I think this defense on its own is going to win them a lot of games. And I think this pass rush, kind of running it back with Miles and Za'Darius, and then some of the big guys in the middle, Mo Hurst. I think Quentin Jefferson is actually going to be one of the biggest under-the-radar signings for this team. I think middle of October, we could be sitting here saying, man, that Quentin Jefferson signing is really paying off for this team with his ability to create pressure up the middle. So I think the defense – Are they going to be the number one defense statistically in the league again? I don't know about that, but I still think they're going to be dominant, and I still think they're going to cause a ton of problems for opposing offenses.
I feel like both of these defenses coming into Sunday's matchup, Dallas and Cleveland, are in many respects mirror images of each other. I mean, you've got strong pass rushes. You've got, you're going to try to get matchups, whether it's, Micah Parsons all over the line against James Hudson. And, we talk about Conklin. Let me ask you something quickly on Conklin. We know he played left tackle at Michigan State, but that was years ago. He's also coming off an injury. And I think people, in talking to some fans, are like, no, it's no big deal. Conklin, played left tackle. He did. But then when you couple that with the injury and the fact that he hasn't had much reps, I don't know if, Micah Parsons is exactly who you want to see opposite him. So what is how does Jack Conklin feel about all of this? Does he feel 100% confident?
I'm sure he does. I mean, he's a guy who's done this for a long time. Like you said, obviously it's been on the right side in the NFL and not the left side. But I think he's confident in himself. The issue is when you hear him talk about that knee injury, you name a ligament and it got repaired. Like that's how serious that knee injury was. Yeah. And Joel Bitonio actually said something in camp at one point where he said Nick Chubb's injury kind of got all the headlines, but Jack Conklin's injury was almost as serious or just as serious as Nick Chubb. So the fact that Conklin is even back already is pretty impressive on its own, but it doesn't mean he's going to be ready to go out there and play left tackle on Sunday in week 1 against Micah Parsons and the Dallas Cowboys. Honestly, if I had to guess right now, I might lean towards James Hudson being the starter. I'm not 100% sure on that. I think they're trying to be as mysterious as possible. We know it's not going to be Jed Wills. He's been ruled out. But it's incredible that Conklin is back, but I can completely understand if they look at this and say, we don't want to test that knee in this game. We still need to take a little time because Nick Chubb is going to miss the first 4 games on the PUP list. Conklin isn't going to miss that many games, but I think it's okay if they decide to slow play this just a little bit.
I'm thinking, I don't want to give away my prediction too early, but I'm thinking this is more of a rock fight. I know we want points, and I know we want, but this, two great defenses, and as I said at the very start of the interview, Dan, week one for all teams, but especially a team that really didn't have a chance with the new offense to get out there and practice. What are your thoughts as far as how, we'll just cut right to the chase. Can we get a prediction? Have you already are you waiting for Cleveland.com? If you need to decline, that's fine. But a prediction for Sunday afternoon, Browns, Cowboys at Huntington Bank Stadium.
I picked a pretty low-scoring game. I'm with you. I think these week one games are really difficult. I think, especially with the way teams approach the preseason now, in some ways, September is almost an extension of that preseason. The Browns haven't played a ton of starters in these games. Some of these guys are just coming back from injury. I think they're more than happy to lean on this defense for a lot of the reasons that I mentioned earlier. It's going to be a dominant group. So I picked a pretty low-scoring game here. I said 22-17 Browns. I just don't know if CeeDee Lamb, obviously a dynamic receiver, one of the best receivers in football. He wasn't in training camp at all.
Yeah,
he was in a hold-in. So I think there has to be some lingering effect of that. I'm sure he can get out there and make plays still, but there has to be some lingering effect behind not practicing at all for months and months and then going out and playing a real football game. So I think you're right. This might be a little bit more of a rock fight than it would be if these two teams were playing in like week 12.
Dan, did I see a prediction from Mary Kay that has the Browns in the AFC Championship game? Did I read that correctly?
I think that's where she put them. She got aggressive in her prediction, and she's got them playing for the AFC. I don't remember if she said who they were going to be playing in that game, but yeah, I think she's got him going all the way to that AFC title game.
Gotta love that. We hope that it plays out that way. Dan Labbe, again, Cleveland.com. You can follow him on Twitter at Dan_Labbe. And, of course, the aforementioned Mary Kay Cabot and Ashley Bastock. They do just a tremendous job. And we always appreciate having Dan Labbe each and every week. And he'll be joining us here on Chico's Countdown to Kickoff. Dan, all the best. Enjoy the season. And we will be talking to you again next week when the Browns are getting ready for the Jacksonville Jaguars, hopefully with a 1-0 record. We shall see.
Yeah, great. I'm happy to be back, like I said, and looking forward to it.
All right. Thank you, bud. That is, again, Dan Labbe from Cleveland.com. When we come back, matchups to watch. Dan kind of talked about some of those matchups. We're going to really go into little more detail about what some of that could look like and play out like on Sunday afternoon at Huntington Bank Stadium. So back with more of that and much, much more right here on Chico's Countdown to Kickoff, all across the Big Play Sports Network. Welcome back. We are counting you down to week one of the Cleveland Browns season, and what a way to start the season as they will take on the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas 12-5 the last 3 years, but as you can imagine in Big D, a lot of angst. Why didn't Jerry get Dak Prescott done? And was he going to get CeeDee Lamb done? There's always, we got that here too, though. That's okay. And there's also a lot of angst just going around our own division. We call this segment Around the North. And we'll take you around the AFC North and check out each and every team that is in action. Of course, all of them in action. Actually, one team starting early on Thursday, the Baltimore Ravens, the Kansas City Chiefs. We'll preview the Steelers and the Falcons and the Bengals and the Patriots in a moment. Pat, I want to bring you in here because last night's game, sometimes those live up to it, sometimes they don't, but that game came down to Isaiah Likely, what looked to be a touchdown in the back of the end zone to make it 27-26, and John Harbaugh was holding up two fingers to go for two, and
Man. What a game.
It got overturned. I thought it should have been, you know what? Yes, his toe was on the line, but the catch was so damn good, and he came back from a play couple plays earlier where he hurt his shoulder. So
yeah, that was
hell
ugly.
with the review board. Score stands, touchdown stands, wouldn't have gone over well at Arrowhead, but that's what they should have done. But, man, what a game. And I'll say this about Baltimore real quick as we look at the AFC North. Lamar is incredible. The offensive line,
not so incredible.
ooh, boy. I mean, that could be a work in progress all season long. Derrick Henry at moments looked pretty good. But, man, they got to get that offensive line figured out.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, step one, I think, for them, too, is the procedural penalties that they had. They had, what, six illegal formations?
Ronnie Stanley thought he was being targeted.
I mean, jeez.
You know.
Get on the line of scrimmage. I don't know what to tell you. Like, that game was unbelievable. That touchdown in the back kind of reminded me of last year's David Njoku touchdown to win it on, what was that, 4th and 15?
Good call.
I mean, the way that it was rolling out to the right, throw it back towards the end, back of the end zone. Incredible play from Isaiah Likely, who looked, I mean, 1-2 plays before, he looked like he had an AC joint sprain or, broken collarbone.
Ran it hard.
Oh, it was ugly.
Yeah.
Oh, it was ugly. But unbelievable from the Ravens to even still be in that football game. And they had some choice words after the game, too, about, the Chiefs didn't even get their best shot. We'll see them in the playoffs, that type of thing. I don't know if I'd be saying that right now.
All I'll say is this, and before we move on to these other two games. Lamar Jackson, they say, lost some weight. Lamar Jackson, that was vintage Lamar Jackson running. Now, again, do they want him to be running that much considering? No, probably not. But it is part of their game plan. Whew. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah and company, they're going to have their hands full. I mean, that's the reason they drafted guys like that. But, man.
You got to have a spy, though, too.
Yeah.
That's the thing, is because they can get around those offensive linemen, but the way he was evading the Chiefs' pass rush, too, was pretty impressive.
So quick. All right, so the Ravens start 0-1. Let's all shed some tears now. Grab our Kleenex. Ravens are 0-1. The Pittsburgh Steelers are in Atlanta. This is such an interesting game, too. Falcons are a 3-point favorite. Old buddy for the Steelers, or for the Falcons, Arthur Smith, is gone. Well, where did he end up? Of course he ended up with the Pittsburgh Steelers, because the Steelers fans, there is not a fan base around that hated their offensive coordinator more than Pittsburgh over the years with Matt Canada. Now they bring in Arthur Smith.
Careful what you wish for.
Yeah. And the Steelers, I don't know, is it going to be Russell Wilson? We're hearing the calf is starting to bother him again.
Yeah, calf issues with Russell Wilson. I don't think it'll be Justin Fields. We don't really have to worry about that too much. But the Steelers are always a really difficult team to figure out. But you know who's the happiest about the Arthur Smith thing is Najee Harris.
Yeah.
They're going to give him 30 carries a game, and they're going to have 40 plays in the game. They'll run the ball all the livelong day with a bell cow running back. I think they're going to try to have a control of the time of possession game against the Falcons, who really want to be a little more high-flying this year. I'm still taking the Falcons, but I don't know. It's an interesting matchup here.
Yeah, I think we talked about offensive line. We talk about rookies a lot in this show in week one. Grady Jarrett, the veteran, up front for the Falcons up against Zach Frazier, the rookie out of West Virginia. The other thing about the Steelers is, and this stat boggled my mind. You mentioned Najee Harris. His backfield mate, change of pace back, and a guy that's great out of the backfield is Jaylen Warren. George Pickens, of the returning receivers, George Pickens led them in yards last year, 1,000, just over 1,000. So that's not a surprise. Do you know the next receiver in line? Jaylen Warren with like 390 some yards.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they had, Calvin Austin back there, Allen Robinson. The cast that they had last year, they still had Deontay Johnson. I mean, he used to be just dicing up defenses on a PPR type of, fantasy football talk. But you get 8-9 receptions a game, he racks up 95 yards and a touchdown. Well, no touchdowns for him, but 95 yards in a game. It's where are these yards going to come from in this offense? I think it's all going to go to George Pickens.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's just you need somebody else to step up, some of those other wideouts, and they just don't have a whole lot behind George Pickens. So, all right, and then we culminate the AFC North. We will culminate it with the Bengals at home against the Patriots. Cincinnati, 8.5-point favorites. Drake May will sit and watch our old buddy Jacoby Brissett. We love Jacoby here in Cleveland. True professional. Unfortunately, the Patriots, who already had a so-so offensive line, now are going to be without two of those starters. And you're talking about a Cincinnati defensive line up front, very, very good. This could be a long, long year, and it's been a long, long time since you said the New England Patriots are going to be, well, I shouldn't say that because recently they have been, but we're not used to saying, could the Patriots have the worst record in football? It is a distinct possibility. We'll see what we'll see what Joe Burrow and company look like. Jamar Chase, that soap opera's still there, but I don't think the Bengals are going to have much of a problem with the Patriots.
Think so either. I mean, their passing attack with Joe Burrow, they can pick up right where they left off no matter. I think T. Higgins will have a great game with or without Jamar Chase, to be honest with you. But this Patriots defense is just Swiss cheese. I don't think the Bengals are going to have any problem.
All right, so that's around the North, week 1, as we again count you down to the Browns and the Cowboys coming up 4:25 at Huntington Bank Stadium. All right. Throw it all out the window now. We had all of this good discussion. We talked to 𝗖𝗛𝗜𝗖𝗢𝗏 and we talked to 𝗖𝗛𝗏𝗧𝗏 and we broke down matchups. It all comes down to who you got. Predictions from myself, my esteemed producer, Pat McGuire. It's on the way next. Chico's Countdown to Kickoff right here on the Big Play Sports Network. All right, we have reached the point in the show where, we had all the meat and potatoes and great conversations with 𝗖𝗛𝗜𝗖𝗢𝗏 covering the Dallas Cowboys, 𝗖𝗛𝗏𝗏𝗏 out in Berea talking about the Browns and different matchups, the pass rush. Now, who you got? Get rid of all of the other stuff. Who you got coming up on Sunday between the Cowboys and the Browns? I'll tell you what, Pat McGuire, my producer, I'm going to allow you to take center stage first.
Oh, man, who you got? I don't know if they're going to like the answer, Chico.
I don't know. Shaking your head.
So we got an over-under of 40.5. Browns 2.5-point favorites.
Yes.
I think I'm taking the Cowboys money line, 24-20. I think the Cowboys are going to win it in front of Thomas Edward, Patrick Brady. 24-20. I don't enjoy saying it, but I just don't have the confidence in Deshaun Watson right now.
Oh, I'll be honest with you. Like, I expected you to go Browns, and this is going to be we're going to get crushed.
Come after us in the comments. Come after us at Chico Show CLE.
Here's my thing, and you kind of stole my thunder a little bit, but that's okay because I think it's a thought that is very, very common right now with Browns fans, whether they want to admit it or not. We still don't know about Deshaun Watson. We certainly don't know about Deshaun Watson coming off this injury. We can hear that he's throwing well in practice, but there's going to be a hit at some point. And even if he's not, say he gets up, he's fine physically, but I've always wondered about Deshaun Watson between the ears. Does he truly, I know he says all the right things, does he truly believe that he is one of the best quarterbacks in football? Does he truly believe that he can get back to those days when he was a Pro Bowler with the Houston Texans? Obviously, as far as Browns fans are concerned, certainly as far as Jimmy Haslam and Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski, they need it to happen. And it doesn't mean he can't get there. I want to be clear about this. You already know where I'm going. I'm not going to pick the Browns to win this game. Browns are still a playoff team in my book. But if ever there's a team that's going to have a clunker coming out, I think it's going to be the Browns. I think the Browns, the offensive line is, granted you've got some veterans there, but you're dealing with a whole nother animal in Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence. So you've got those two guys to deal with. A new linebacking crew, which is pretty good, pretty quick. But I think all in all, what it comes down to for me is, do I trust Dak Prescott or do I trust Deshaun Watson? Right now, I trust Dak Prescott. Deshaun Watson can certainly prove me wrong. I hope he does. And by the way, this Browns defense is going to play, they're going to play their rear ends off. They will all season, and this will be, in my mind, a very low-scoring game. I'm going to go, I said a rock fight earlier. I'm going to say 17-14 Cowboys, a late field goal, and a booming field goal from the guy that kind of just burst on the scene last year in Dallas, Brandon Aubrey. So I hope I'm wrong, and the Browns will still make the postseason. I don't think they're going to win the division, but they still will make the postseason. But I think they lose week 1 Sunday at 4:25 against the Dallas Cowboys 17-14.
I'll tell you what, Chico, more importantly than that, what do you think the atmosphere is going to be down here? I think it's going to be unbelievable. Right in front of Burke Lakefront Airport.
They're already parking
right
cars.
Here. They're parking cars already.
Oh, yeah, the RVs,
Yeah.
and that's,
That line.
Browns fans, you deserve, it's got to happen sooner or later. And I want, like I said, I'd love to be wrong. I'm wrong a ton. Hopefully I'm wrong with this game. I just don't see them getting off to a great start offensively. But, yeah, the RVs are parked. People, this place is going to be berserk. They're going to be nuts, and the Browns wouldn't have it any other way. All right, so that's going to do it. I want to say thank you to Saad Yousuf of The Athletic, also Dan Lobby, Cleveland.com, for checking in with us. My esteemed producer, Pat McGuire, did a tremendous job, and we've got 16 more of these bad boys to go. But most importantly, thank you for checking in and hopefully hanging with us all season long. I'm Mike Chico Borman. This has been Chico's Countdown to Kickoff right here on the Big Play Sports Network. Go Browns.